Hello and welcome to Seattle City Makers. I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Welcome to our latest episode. I'm joined by Marcus Lalario, who was described by Seattle Met Magazine as Seattle's version of Kevin Bacon, but you don't need all 6 degrees of separation. He's deeply connected into Seattle's food, music, and fashion scenes, and there's nothing he does just on his own. He's a collaborator by nature. And behind places like the War Room, 95 Slide, Little Woody's, now with 4 locations, including one that he recently opened in Tokyo. He was the manager of Band of Horses and most recently opened a sneaker Italian food and event space in the former London Plain location in Pioneer Square called HOMETEAM. He's a fascinating innovator and entrepreneur who got his start by buying out the lease of a male strip club on Capitol Hill as a 19-year-old and turning it into an all-ages music venue. Marcus and I discuss how he's approached his various ventures, his most recent creation, HOMETEAM, fatherhood, his perspective on Pioneer Square, his first job, and his perfect Saturday in Seattle. Hope you enjoy my conversation with Marcus Lalario. Well, thanks again for making time for this.
Yeah, man.
Marcus.
Thanks for having me.
So maybe we start with HOMETEAM and Darkalinos, because I think you're a little over a year and haven't opened this, right?
Yeah. We opened last year at the All-Star game.
That was good timing. Weekend. Was that intentional?
It was. That was our goal. We took the space over, I think, in April, and we had 3 or 4 months to build it out, flip it, and get it done, and we did it.
Where'd the vision for this mashup of retail, food, events, DJs? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything I've done and continue to do. Have some clothing brands. I have restaurants. I used to be heavily involved in music and now getting back into music. I just wanted to see what it would be like to have, everything I'm really passionate about under one roof and see how to make it work. And one of my partners, Ben Kirshner, I'd been talking to him about the sneaker thing for a long time, and we definitely wanted to focus on Pioneer Square.
Mm-hmm. You've been wanting to get in this neighborhood for a while.
Yeah, Pioneer Square or International District, its proximity to the stadiums, what it's meant to the city as a whole, and kind of where it was at the time. And when the space popped open, we jumped on it. It made a lot of sense. And we just kind of went for it. You know what I mean? And everything kind of fell into place from, Tom Kundig being really excited about doing the architecture, which has always been an idol of mine. And I have all his books and thought it was a long shot, but I just sent kind of a Hail Mary email and he just showed up.
I want you to do the design on the tenant improvements. And
yeah, I just kind of said, hey, we got this project in Pioneer Square. I know your office is nearby. I just wanted to see if someone over there was interested. And I thought it would be an underling of an underling of an underling of an underling. And all of a sudden I get an email saying Tom wants to meet you on Monday. And he walked in, he was like, I'm so jazzed. I can't wait to do this. And I was like, bro, I don't even know if I can afford you. You know what I mean? And he was very, very generous with his time and, worked within our budget. And I have nothing but positive things to say. And it was super fun working with him and Connor, his partner over there.
That's great. I didn't know that part of the story. And he did design the kiosk or pavilion across the street. Too,
and he takes a lot of pride in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
So it was amazing.
So has a year in, has the concept aligned with your original vision and sort of how it's operating today?
Yeah. Everything's coming together. I think one of the biggest things we wanted to do was work with legacy brands from the Northwest and be able to tell their stories the way we tell our stories. And so I think kind of one of the biggest, coolest, a couple of really cool things happened. One was helping Charles Peterson launch his photo book on Nirvana. Because we have the art gallery as well, we launched the book, we had a photo show of his, we had 10 artists from Seattle paint over his original Nirvana photos. And then we had a party in the HOMETEAM, and then we did a collection with Dickies on behalf of Charles and Sub Pop and Easy Street. So we're able to tie in all these things, and that's been the goal. The other cool thing was we did a collection with Filson, and that's been a brand that I've always wanted to work with forever. They came in when we opened, loved the space. We got to talking, and they're like, let's do something. And they don't do a lot of collaborations with a lot of people. So we felt at this young of a stage in our history to do that was phenomenal. So another way we took advantage of the whole picture was we designed the clothing. We had the Macaw tribe model the clothing. We went to Nia Bay, filmed them fishing in the clothing. With the fish they caught, we brought it back to Home Team. We did a pop-up dinner the night before the clothes release with Local Tide, which is another local restaurant. And then the next day, we launched the clothing with a party. We had lowriders out front. We had a marching band from New Orleans out front. We had DJs inside. We had like 400 or 500 people here. And it was like Mariner fans, hip-hop heads, Filson fans. You know, we had bikers here. It was like everybody was here together having fun. There was no stress, no issues at all. The mall was packed. It was just like the most amazing cultural event. And that's what we're striving to do.
I've got like post FOMO because it's like I already missed out. But.
Yeah, there's more to come. I mean, we just did our first, we had our first ticketed event out front. We turned Occidental Mall into a concert on Friday, a live music venue. Built a stage, the lighting. We sold out 2,200 tickets. Not an issue at all. Everyone had a blast. It was 21 and over. We fenced everything off, and it was just like an amazing show. The lights were beautiful to have all the trees lit up. It was just really, really cool to see that here in Pioneer Square, which is the birthplace of music of Seattle, and to bring that back is amazing.
Did you have any trepidation coming into this space that was formerly London Plain? People loved it. It was a sad day when they announced it was closing. And were you sort of worried, like, oh man, how are people going to take this kind of hard pivot? Like, I mean, it was white before, and you went.
Yeah, and it was like, it was super busy, and I wanted to bring the brick back, and we had to, we had to sandblast all the white off, and we wanted to make it our own space. But London Plain was amazing, and those guys, like, I can't say enough nice things about them through the transition period. They were so graceful and so cool, and they were happy that it was going into someone's hands that were going to put energy into it.
I think the whole neighborhood in downtown was just grateful to see the space being
and the landlords here have been amazing and really like open to like bringing culture and youth and energy back here. And every Saturday we do a dance party for kids out front that's free for parents. You know what I mean? So we're trying to do all this stuff to bring people back down here to be like, yo, this is safe. This is the most beautiful part of Seattle. And, you just got to come down here, see it, experience it, and hang out. You know what I mean?
When you signed this lease, did you have visions and intentions of using the mall in the way you just described, or are those have those ideas?
Yeah, no,
you had intention of like, let's do events, let's do parties, let's do music.
Yeah, I wanted to do it all. You know what I mean? And I didn't know it was going to be possible. I just knew I wanted to do it. And we started working on plans and permitting probably January, February. And then all of a sudden it just happened. And we were a month down. We're like, oh shit, we got a artist booked. We got people going, how are we doing this? And I got to say, like, the city, I've had in the past, I've tried to do these things and I've had nothing but issues and red tape with the city of Seattle. Whatever has been happening in the past 3 or 4 years has been amazing. They're really pushing for these things. They're saying yes instead of no. They're figuring out how to make it happen instead of just being like, nope, we don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's been crazy supportive. It's been amazing to see. It's like, I used to always bitch like Seattle City of Music, but we can't do festivals. We don't have anything outside. Like, what's the City of Music shit? Like, cool, we have musicians at the airport telling you to look out for the escalator. You know what I mean? But it's got to be more than that.
It's too hard to...
Yeah, and I feel like it is becoming more than that. With the Downtown Summer Concert Series, which is killer. All the stuff, Forest Through the Trees, what that gallery's doing is amazing.
Yeah, urban villages.
All that stuff. There's all these vintage stores, Lemon Grove, all this cool stuff that's happening. There was a Latino market that happened over here in Occidental Mall that was like so great. And so I just feel like Seattle's becoming these cities. It's becoming a city that I've always wanted it to be. When you go to Phoenix, they have all these outdoor events and they're so great and they have all this great food. And, anywhere, New York, LA, there's all these outdoor events happening. And I feel like it's happening here. And, I want to do my part to continue to make it happen and put the energy into it. And instead of bitching about it, try to be part of the solution and make it work for, people and do it the way I think my friends and peers would enjoy it, because other people are doing it the way their friends, peers enjoy it. And that's great because we need all of it.
Does that drive a lot of your inspiration? I'm curious. folks that are creating these kinds of experience, whether it's food and beverage or music or
Yeah.
retail, how much of your own personal taste and desires and those of your friends are sort of driving your concepts and creativity.
It's all that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If my friends don't come in and say, "Yo, this is dope,"
Then you
I
miss
feel
the
like
mark.
the profit isn't the point for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's important to be able to strive and continue to work. But like, if my friends are like, "This is whack," I have failed. You know what I mean?
Not
like,
good whack, bad whack.
Yeah, I have failed. So it's like, it's like I've always wanted to fill I'm so proud of the city and always been like such a Seattle ride or die guy that like, if there's something I feel that is missing, I try to take it upon myself to fill that gap because I want to be talked about as the great cities in the United States and the world. And, people are always checking for Seattle, what's next, because of the fashion, the music, the food, all that stuff that dwells under here. But also just the fact that, everyone's curious what's happening. And it's like when people come here, I want them to be like, wow, this is dope. You know what I mean? There is dope shit going on. There is things to do for me and my friends. You know what I mean? Because there's obviously the opera's got what they got going on. Paramount's got, all these people have what they got going on, but culturally, what's relative for this group of people.
Does the pandemic and sort of how it impacted people's habits and behaviors and how they spent their time and money, does it change how you approach what you're trying to create? Or, I mean, you've always kind of done this like mashup thing of having a bunch of different things going on. And now, a lot of people post-pandemic are like, you got to have the food and the music and,
we
the
did
event space. You got to like throw all these things in this one place to get people to show up and spend their money and spend their time. Does anything that came out of the pandemic influence your concepts today?
We did it. We were just trying to get people together, and I'm like, okay, food, alcohol, coffee, fashion, sneakers, music.
Yeah.
One of those things is getting people here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, if we can, and like when we release drops, like the Filson drop, we release it Friday night at a party. You know what I mean? And then the next day it's available online. So if you want it, it's going to sell quick. You need to come out and be it. Come out and see it, touch it, feel it, and be there under the roof. And so that's been a big part of our plan was let's get people together again. Let's give them a safe place to hang out, a cool place to hang out, and just see what happens. You know what I mean? We encourage loitering. You know what I mean? If you need a place to work, come work for here. You don't got to buy nothing. We're not asking you to spend money. Just come sit here and chill. You know what I mean? That's why we have the bleachers. We have upstairs. We want people to hang out and get together, and you never know what will happen from there.
What's your feeling about the neighborhood today versus when you were first looking at this space? I mean, it sounds like you're pretty positive about
the direction.
Man.
Yeah, it's popping. Like there's so much cool stuff happening. Like I just mentioned from the art, I can't say enough about what's going on, over there with those guys, the Forest Through the Trees, and what Dom and those guys are
Urban
doing.
Villages development. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. And, all the shows that happening at T-Mobile and Lumen Field and WAMU, just bringing that energy down here. The Mariners finally making some trades is exciting.
We can hit the ball again.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, when you start, not one big thing is going to make it happen. It's all these little things. And you have to have all these little things happening for all these different people to be able to come down and see it. And once all these people come down and see it, then eventually that swell starts happening.
So a lot of little things. There are two big things coming. Waterfront opening in a year, or less than a year. And then, of course, the World Cup. How do you think of those two big events and moves for Seattle? And are you already thinking about those World Cup weeks? And
yeah, for sure. Because, All-Star Weekend for Pioneer Square was a flop. It was a flop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was nothing happening here. There was no action. It was all the restaurants overstaffed, had food ready. They're expecting all these people, and we were busy.
What do you attribute that to? People just getting spread out in other parts of the
I think it was
city,
I think it was poor planning. I think it was not having activations in Occidental Mall and Occidental Park. It's like you have these things like, why wouldn't there be DJs playing? Why wouldn't you have bands playing? Why wouldn't you have a batting cage where kids can come hit baseballs, or a wiffle ball home run derby? Like, why wouldn't you have more of this stuff going on to where people want to be around stuff? You know what I mean? And it's like, if there's an all-star game and you don't have a ticket, you want to be in the area because there's
energy.
excitement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So why
You think there was enough of that in the neighborhood?
Why weren't there screens set up with the game showing and saying, bring your lawn chairs out here and hang out? You know what I mean? If you go to Wrigleyville or you go to, is it Deer Park in Milwaukee, there's 100,000 people outside the stadium watching the game. Mm-hmm. We're the only city, not the only city, we're one of the cities that just doesn't have that. And so we were at the end of last baseball season, my other partner, Dustin, who is with us here, he was working hard on getting the city to get inflatable big screens to be like, let's have the playoff games out here. And to the city's event, they were with it. They were working on it. Root Sports had agreed to let us show it, all that stuff. So that's the kind of stuff that I feel like should have happened during All-Star Game and just didn't. And so I'm not going to let that happen during World Cup.
Yeah,
if
so
World Cup is saying we're only going to be down there, that's cool. I'm going to do something here.
Yeah.
You know, permitted or non-permitted.
Yeah, those tickets are going to be tough to get. So there'll be a lot of people in town.
Yeah, like have activations.
Wanting to get together with others to watch the game.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's not a little.
Yeah, and so I hope that was a learning, and I hope some of the concerts that I'm lucky enough to be able to do is a learning and to show and prove like people want to be here.
Yeah.
People want to hang out. So like, let's make it happen.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you've had an interesting career and created and brought to the city lots of different experiences, whether it's food and music, and you got your start, as I understand, buying a male strip club when you were a teenager. You took over a lease.
Yeah.
And then you converted it to an all ages dance club.
Yep.
What gave you the kind of the, I don't know, the gumption or thought, the confidence at that age that you could take over
I've
lease
never
and like turn into something different and make it work?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really thought about anything. You know what I mean? I just kind of like do it, you know? So I'm like, that sounds like cool. Let's do it and figure it out. Like,
you don't
this
have
might
that
sound
thing
crazy,
like a lot
but
of people in their head do of like, but what if this?
yeah,
what if
because I can find a million, like a restaurant, you can find millions of ideas why not to open one. You know what I mean? There's maybe one or two reasons to open a restaurant. And one of those probably isn't a good reason in itself. So it's like, you know, this might sound crazy, but I've never done like a P&L before opening a restaurant. You know, I've never been like, I look at a spot and I'm like, I think this will cost about that. And then I do it. And it's usually costs more than that, but you figure it out. You know what I mean? Because as you're building, you're like, this would be cool to do that. And
was that bill you got from Tom Kundig where you thought it'd be?
It was less. Really? It was less. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Was he doing you a solid?
Very much so.
So you just go.
I just go. So, you know, I was working at Easy Street Records. You know, that's kind of where I got my original start, was at Easy Street when I was 14 years old.
And you rolled in and lied to him about your age?
Yeah.
If I read right?
Yeah. Yeah, because you had to be 16.
You said I was 16.
Yeah. And then, you know, shortly
you literally rolled in, right? Didn't
on
you skateboard in?
Yeah, on a skateboard. I came in thinking I was like, they're going to be impressed with me on a skateboard. I'm such an alternatine. You know what I mean?
Did you know you had to be 16 when you were going in there, or did you figure that out and have to like fib on the spot?
You know, that part I don't remember. Yeah. Matt remembers it a little bit better than me. I mean, I do remember, of course, you know, doing what I had to do to get the job. And I didn't know if I was going to get it, but, you know, I got it. And then when they found out, they just loved the fact that I did that. So they put me on the phone doing radio and college promotion for the bands they managed. So it was back in the day where you had to like call every college radio station in America, send them a CD, call them back, make sure they got it, and then beg them to play it. And it was like the music supervisors would be in like, we're in Tuesday and Thursday from 9 to 12. And so everyone from every label's calling at that time. You know what I mean? And
that
so
sounds so like arcane nowadays.
It was crazy.
Like, wait, what?
It was
send
crazy.
them something and you make sure that
and just to do that, to write the address of all these college radio stations and put stamps on shit and like, you know, and then I remember just going to the end and just sitting in the end in their lobby and just like not leaving until they would like listen to shit. And, you know, dealing with Marco back then and all these guys and just being like, dude. And finally like, all right, man, fuck.
Did you feel like you had an ear for music, or were you just sort of like, I mean, this is what my job is. I gotta.
No, I knew what I liked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I also knew these people knew what was good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they, you know, the people, Matt's parents managed Queensryche. You know what I mean? Matt was managing Grunt Truck. Mm-hmm. And I was just happy to be in the mix. And I was a huge hip hop guy, and I was huge, you know, if like Wu-Tang was a street and Nirvana was a street, I was like on the corner of it. You know what I mean? Like I loved all that shit.
Venn diagram there.
Matt Vaughn's parents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I did that, and then working at Easy Street, you start hearing all this music, and that's when the rave culture started happening, and I got really into drum and bass music specifically. And so no one was doing drum and bass music in the city, and no one wanted to hear it. They're like, this is like fucking sped up hip hop, and it's so aggressive and all this stuff. And we're like, yeah, but this is the shit. You know what I mean? And so, I started doing this drum and bass night on Thursdays there. Aerospace was a club, the electronic club. And I was, under Alex Calderwood, he was kind of a mentor, and I was doing all the stuff with them and promoting their shows and picking up DJs, just kind of being that guy for him. So I started meeting all these great people, and so it got to a point where I saw this movie Rockers, this Jamaican dance hall movie, and they do these things called DJ takeovers. You know what I mean? Where they would just come up and kick the DJ off and start playing their music. And I was like, now I know how we're going to be heard. So we would be at Aerospace, and on the second floor, I'd be like, bro, you're done. Like, did they want you off? And we'd have our dude go up and play. And
they actually weren't done. You were just sort of like...
I was kicking them off. And then we would play our music, and people would be like, what the fuck is this? And so, we forced our way into like this thing. And then, so we had an all ages thing at Mr. Pattywax. During the week, it was an all ages club. On the weekend, it was a male strip club.
Where was that
at? Pike and Harvard.
Oh, yeah.
And so the guy, the owner and his wife were like, hey, we're closing because we can't pay our rent. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, that sucks. And, I don't know where I got the idea from, but I was like, if I pay your back rent, can I have the lease? And he was like, sure, we want out of here. This thing's a headache. And so I talked to the landlord at the time. It was this old Greek guy, and he ended up being a very, very important person in my growth and development, teaching me about lease rights. And, he was very about his business, but a great mentor at the same time. So he saw that I was serious and was like, I'll give you a chance. And this was Capitol Hill, 30 years ago. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like there was it was popping, but it wasn't, everything was like two stories. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I had this all ages club that the Gravity Bar gave me, they used to have these triangle tables, and they gave me those tables because they were changing. So I had those tables in there, DJ booth in the corner that we built out of plywood. And I had some friends that, we were so dumb that, I was like, hey, to my friend, can you take that light down? He went up with a ladder and scissors and cut it and shocked himself. That's how ignorant we were at the time on what to do. You know what I mean? But yeah, and then like someone was like, oh, I got arcade games. Can I put them in here? So we had a little arcade. We had the club, and I think we were open from 12 to 9 in the morning, something like that. So we were after hours for Aerospace sometimes. And then when they would go away, we'd be after hours for raves, and we were doing our music, and it just worked out. You know what I mean? It just kind of one thing led to another. And then when I turned 21, we turned it into a bar because I couldn't sell booze. And, I think I remodeled that space 5 times over the 20 plus years I had it, made it 4 or 5 different nightclubs. The War Room being the probably the most popular out of all of them.
That was the most recent.
That was the most popular. Then it was HG Lodge.
Oh, that's
and
right,
then I got tired of clubs and turned it into 95 Slide, which was a sports bar, but that ended up being a club too on the weekends.
And now that space or that lot's redeveloped?
It's redeveloped.
Yeah.
It's where Mars, whatever that, Mars.
Life on Mars.
Life on Mars is now.
Jonathan Richards and company. Yeah.
Yeah. So that started that program. And then I got offered, because War Room was successful, you kind of start offering other spaces. And then I got offered Captain Black's and remodeled that, and we had to learn how to do food. And so I learned quickly that food is very, very difficult, especially if you're not a chef.
There's that, yeah.
And then, traveling. And at the time I was managing Band of Horses. So I was traveling the world managing these guys, trying to keep my nightclub going. And then, I was doing a ton of work for Red Bull, all this marketing stuff. So you see all this cool shit everywhere. And I was like, oh, but, outside of Dick's, there's no like really cool walk-in burger joint. You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, let's see if I can do that. And then, I created Little Woodies. And then, from that and the way we marketed, I kind of met, I met Matt Dillon, this other chef And we started, and he was like, we should do something together. The way you market and the way I cook, it'd be great. And so we had all these ideas.
Did you meet each other because you were around the corner from each other?
Yeah, he would come eat burgers there, and then he would always come up to my sports bar, 95 Slide, and we'd hang out and talk about sports. We just had a lot in common. And
he had Sitka and Spruce, right?
And then we did CDOD, and he got too busy and had to back out. So then all of a sudden I had this finer dining restaurant that I knew nothing about. You know what I mean? Like, and so that was like a very challenging first couple years for me to figure out, how do you run a restaurant and how do you just stop the bleeding? You know what I mean? Because I was
all ages raves to fine dining.
Yeah. And and we luckily we worked it out and made it work. And so it's like, from there, and then I took over the space on the other side, and we started doing day parties in between in the courtyard, and that really brought a lot of attention to Georgetown from the younger demographic and a different demographic. And at first there was some pushback, and then after a while, everyone was excited about all the business coming down there on Sundays, because we'd have 600, 800, sometimes 1,000 kids in there dancing on Sunday. And so it ended up being a good thing. So we ran that for 5 years, and then I stopped doing it and focused more on more restaurants and more clothing, and that kind of what's led us to here, I suppose.
Speaking of kids, you're a newish dad, right?
Yeah. So son was born in March, signed the lease here in April, opened Tokyo with Little Woody's in Tokyo in August.
In Tokyo, Japan.
Yeah.
How'd that deal come together? Why Japan?
There was 4 or 5 restaurant groups that were interested in Little Woody's. Before the pandemic. They just kind of liked how we were involved in music and fashion, and we marketed differently. And so, they were all over here, coming out here, hanging out, trying to figure it out. And then I picked the one group I wanted to work with, and we were there March of 2020, about to sign the deal, me and my wife. And it was like, you guys either need to fly home in the next few days or you're going to be stuck in Japan. I was like, I got to get this deal done. And, it just wasn't coming together. It was going to take more time. And I was like, okay, I got to get home, So we left coming out of the pandemic. They were flying me back. So I was going for about a year and a half. I was going to Japan every month for 10 days. And spending all this time. And so I met my GM and my cook. And then we finally, with that restaurant group coming out of a pandemic, they were a little nervous about opening an American restaurant, a new restaurant, which I understood. And they weren't giving it what I felt it needed to be successful. And I already spent so much time and energy. And I was just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to do it on my own. You know what I mean? Like I've come this far. The exchange rate made sense. A lot of things kind of made sense. And so I just said, let's just see if I can do it. And I said, if you guys help me with some logistics and back end and, point me in the right direction of a few things I need, I'm going to go ahead and do this thing on my own, because if I lose,
them out of the deal.
If I lose, I want to lose giving it 100%. I don't want to lose with some maybes. And so my deck got circulated around a little bit, and I got offered this space, and all these people from Japan were like, oh, you're bringing money to Japan. You're not taking money out of Japan.
That's a good deal.
So all these people were helping me, and they were so kind and so generous. And, everyone was like, oh, we can help you get this and we can help you get that. And then there's this huge retail Asian company called Don Quixote. They're like the biggest retailers out there. And they were building a new development across the street in the heart of Shibuya, like 3 or 4 blocks from Shibuya Crossing. And they had got my deck, and they wanted to be the first. They wanted to open the first American brand after the pandemic. That was their goal, or to have it in their building. And so the final 3 was me, Tiffany's, and Burger King. We were the final. We made the 3. So I guess I was in the middle somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, they ended up picking us. So it'll be a year in about 2 weeks since we've been open, and I go back. I was going every month after the pandemic till now. I mean, I don't know. I've been there 40, 50 times. It'd be crazy. And so,
do you ever think like, man, that's crazy that I'm running a restaurant thousands and thousands of miles away? It's hard enough to run one in your own town.
Yeah. And it's especially when you don't have all the connections you've made over the years. I can't just call friends and be like, hey, let's do a pop-up, or, hey, how does this sound? Or can we do a concert out front? You know what I mean? Japan is very strict. They're very by the book.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And there's just many, many times where I was just like, what the fuck did I do? You know what I mean? Like, but again, we have a space in Japan and it's going just fine. And we will find a new partner that'll help us grow the brand. We have a lot of talks with a lot of people. And my wife is half Japanese, so she's ecstatic about it. And, I go all the time. She comes with me once or twice a year for a few months at a time. And
are there food or music or retail experiences there that influence how you think about your work and concepts here?
Well, I've never seen any place that has what we do. I guess maybe maybe Nordstrom's Cafe. I don't know. You know what I mean? But like on like this thing, like a lot of not a lot, but some retail out there will have like a coffee shop next door.
Yeah.
Or like a
little
soft
bar in
serve
the back
component. Yeah, but nothing where it's this interactive. But Japan is like the most inspiring place in the world. I mean, it is everything's on time. It is so safe. People really work hard. They're proud of what they do. It's the biggest city in the world, so there's always dope shit going on. It's like every night it's like I want to go to bed, but there's these 6 things I want to see. You know what I mean? And it's like all like very much related to everything that I enjoy. You know what I mean? And I've been lucky enough to meet a lot of great people, and we're doing the collaborations out there like we do here. We're working with amazing brands. We're working with amazing musicians. We're working with athletes. We're working with chefs. I mean, it's pretty great to see to be duplicated out there in the way that it's been duplicated.
How has fatherhood changed you?
It's a whole new focus. It's really wild how, this thing comes out and you're all of a sudden, all this love happens. You're just like, oh shit. Okay. And everything just changes like immediately. And the drive is a lot thicker. You know what I mean? And it's a lot more serious. Your time is a lot more important in how you spend it and who you spend it with. The motivation changes. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's like I think I'm doing more now in less time than I was before, which is strange. You know what I mean? And I still, I try to stay home. I get up really early, do a few things on my own in the morning, and then I spend a couple hours with my kid before I go to work, and then I try to be home by 5 or 5:30 to spend the last couple hours with them, and then the weekends, we try to hang out, and it doesn't always work out perfectly, but yeah, I mean, I understand it. I went from basically being, kind of single for 40 years to living in a multi-generational house. You know what I mean? My wife, her mother, and my child all live there.
Yeah.
So it's like, it was a steep learning curve. But luckily, it's good. It could be a lot worse. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Sounds all right. What's next for you? Do you have a new concept on the drawing boards?
Yeah. I mean, you might've seen the news. I'm part of the team that just took over The Stranger.
I didn't see that part of it.
Yeah. So
I saw the news, but I didn't see your name associated with it.
Yeah. So I'm part of the team.
Yeah.
We've started.
You and Brady Walkinshaw and.
Brady put the thing together, and me and my friend Day were. Day mainly approached me about kind of creating this media company, kind of like a Vice magazine from Seattle, and I was all over it. And so we've been going down the path, and then Day and Brady are friends, and they started talking, and they were like, how do we just all kind of do this thing together? So over the past few months, we kind of figured it out, and I have a bigger role in the studio part, and it'll be really cool to be able to like do a food show, do a sneaker show, a culture show, an art show, a music show, all these things but based out of Seattle, hopefully for the rest of the world. So it'll be a lens on Seattle, but hopefully storytelling that people are interested in worldwide. There'll be politics, all kinds of stuff involved. And then, through my thing, I'll be helping out on certain things at The Stranger as well, and have a little bit of ownership over there.
Right on.
Yeah. So that's new.
Yeah. That's great. That's great.
We're doing, we're getting back into doing concerts. We just had our first ticketed event out here on Friday. We have Dinosaur Jr. coming August 25th downtown. We have Tuxedo and Four Color Zach September 7th out here. That's free. But Dinosaur Jr. is free.
We're partnering with you on that one, I think, aren't we? Yeah, Dinosaur Jr.
Yep. And Tuxedo in a way.
Right on.
I'm thrilled
great
to
seeing
be
this space out front here, the mall.
Yeah.
In addition to the park, get activated.
Yeah,
it's such a great public space.
Yeah, it's killer. And people were just on Friday like, oh my God, this is where we're gonna see this show.
Yeah.
And it was really cool. So to get back into music is really important to me, and it's been really fun to kind of.
And you don't have to tour. You can use.
I don't have to tour. My wife won't let me tour.
Walk 10 feet out your front door. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
What was the most fun touring, and what was the least?
Just hanging out with your friends. You know what I mean? It's like so great.
Who was in Band of Horses when you were with them?
It was obviously Ben and Creighton, Rob, and I think that was it.
Sarah Cahoon?
Nope, she played drums on the first record, but she was never really in it. I actually managed Sarah Cahoon too.
Oh yeah,
used to manage her, as well.
She's great.
Yeah. So I just worked a lot with Sub Pop, and again, that was like, there's all these things growing up that I've always wanted to do, and working with Sub Pop, being one of them, having something to do, having a burger joint in the stadium, is pretty iconic to me. So
You're
there's
at T-Mobile now, right?
T-Mobile, and we're about to be in the airport in December. We open.
What'd you like least about touring?
Being with my friends the whole time. It's just a lot of like attitude. It's like you're tired and you're in a shitty van and everybody stinks. You know what I mean? And it's just fun and exciting. And I just, I liked the energy of it, and I liked when it all came together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the band's playing and it sounds great, and you're sitting there going and everyone's enjoying it. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff is like, it's really rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have two standard questions that we usually conclude with. I think you answered the first one, which was, unless you were working before 14 and collecting a paycheck, but your first job, was it at Easy Street?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, my first job actually was, I was bussing tables and washing dishes.
Oh yeah, where at?
At this place called Cousins. And it was like, it would get so busy that I would like be so pissed. I would like take plates and throw them against the wall until someone would come help me.
Don't need to wash that one. It's broken.
Yeah, and then
where was that at?
It was in Kirkland. Yeah, and then I worked at a place called Pelican's Wharf where I like made croutons and cleaned crabs, and it was just like, I was like, there's got to be something better out there.
I washed dishes for a little bit. That's tough work.
Yeah. I mean, I never was like, I'm gonna be a restaurateur. That was never the plan.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's just kind of
it's hard work back in the kitchen, back of the house.
Yeah,
and then our other standard question, our final question is, what's your perfect Saturday in Seattle? Like, you can design it beginning to end. What are you doing? I imagine it's changed a little bit since you became a father.
Before I had a kid, I golfed a lot. I got into golfing during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because my friend was like, this will really help you get your mind off things. And I just kind of fell in love with it.
You and Macklemore, right?
Yeah. Same time. I got a couple of friends that we all started at the same time, and just all fell in love with it. Yeah. So that would probably be in there. Obviously, breakfast with the fam, maybe go golf, come back, hopefully watch a Mariners or a Husky game or a Seahawks game. Yeah. Chilling, a lot of relaxing, hopefully after the golf. That sounds like a good Saturday to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Your Saturday sounds a lot like my Saturday. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks for making time for this, Marcus.
We actually have Bogey Boys taking over the gallery for November and December.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, so that should be cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
November, December.
Yep.
Get your golf gear.
Yep.
Down at Home Team.
Yep. So excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for making time for this and for what you've brought to downtown and the city, and keep it up.
Yeah, man. Happy.
Your energy and optimism's infectious.
Yeah, we're happy to be a part of it. Happy the city is saying yes now instead of no, and we appreciate you letting us do these shows with y'all downtown. Man, they're going to be great.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
Everybody just needs to come take part in it.
Yeah, should be good.
Well, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Marcus. A lot of fun that was. Thanks to him for making time and for all he's brought to our city. An incredibly creative and innovative individual that's making great things happen in Pioneer Square and beyond. So thanks for that, Marcus. I want to close out with a recommendation of something you got to check out here in downtown Seattle. In this case, I want to highlight the Friend Museum, which feels appropriate after having Marcus on. This is a mashup of all kinds of things in Pioneer Square called the Friend Museum at 83 South King in the former location of Seattle Hardware in a beautiful 1904 building. It's a retail shop featuring a bunch of Seattle's coolest vendors and vintage items. They do pop-ups and classes and events and dinners. They've got a coffee shop in there. They invite you to come lounge on the sofa inside. So a bunch of different things going on at the Friend Museum at 83 South King. Check them out, friendmuseum.com. They're open traditional retail hours, and it looks like a very interesting and fun and social experience. So go check it out. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this episode of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association, with support from James Cito and production by Spark Creative.